Jenita Lawal with Lawal Travel Services, bringing you Travel Talk Weekly, where we talk all things travel. I am excited because this almost didn't happen today. Technology was not working with me. So we're a little bit late, but that's okay. We're still coming at you with the headlines for this week. And this week, we're talking really about flights. There were several articles that piqued my interest this week. Um, and one issue is not an article, not one particular article, but a conversation that came up in some travel agent groups, right? Some travel advisor groups, sorry, not travel agent, travel advisor groups. And you guys may have seen some chatter um, I believe a bill was being considered regarding the airlines being responsible for paying like refunds because of cancellations and things like that. Because as you know, right now things are crazy with airlines. Honestly, it really is. I have clients flying, and every day I'm like, oh, please, oh. And so there was a bill. One of the suggestions on this bill, right? My understanding from I think Travel Weekly and ASTA was that travel advisors or travel agencies would be on the hook for the refunds for cancellations is not fair. And so a lot of us were talking about no longer offering flights to people because that we can't take on that responsibility because we have absolutely zero influence over what the airlines do and zero control over what they do. And when we pay your money to them, that's it. We're at their mercy the same way you're at their mercy, right? So that came up this week. And so it just, really got me thinking about how do you serve clients in a way that, is of excellence, but then also protect yourself as a business. So it was an interesting week. And I've been looking at the news stories this week, just seeing like what's transpiring with that. So more to come. But, here at our agency, we still offer flights inside packages, and we also, when we do FITs, we offer to book flights with that. We, of course, book directly with the airlines whenever possible because that gives you the best flexibility. Enough about that. So one of the first headlines that it piqued my interest because on my way back from Europe, I flew with Iberojet, okay? And I think they're called something else now, like Ever or something like that, but Iberojet, okay? And I had a good experience for the most part, but their embarkation and disembarkation, or boarding and deboarding, whatever you want to call it, was atrocious. It was so disorganized, right? There was no organization to it whatsoever. The other time that I experienced, and I'll say this, they embark and disembark on the tarmac, right? And so the story that caught my eye is about Indigo, which is an independent budget airline out of India. They made history because they're the first airline to have three doors for disembarkation, which I'm like, okay, that's a newsworthy thing, I guess, whatever. And it piqued my interest because I had such a bad experience with Iberojet. Now, Iberojet, the flight itself was great. The flight crew was awesome. So I have no issues with the flight itself. But the embarkation and disembarkation it was ridiculous. And it got me thinking, like, how often does it happen? And I will say that I have embarked or disembarked on the tarmac a few times. And I think the most organized was JetBlue. Because with JetBlue, if you were in certain seats, you went through the front door. And if you were like after a certain seat, you went through the rear door. And that made so much sense because you didn't have cross traffic happening. And so JetBlue does it well. And I experienced that JetBlue in Barbados, like um, arriving in Barbados and leaving Barbados. Now leaving, but yeah, because you also get on the same way. If your seat is at a certain point, you get on through the back door or the front door. And so with this Indigo airline, what they've done is they have two front doors and now a rear door. So I can't visualize that. Maybe it's a door on either side of the plane and then the rear door. I don't know. But they made history. So yay, Indigo, for making history for being the first airline in the world to use a 3-point system. Yay, who knew? So that was one headline. The other headline that caught my eye, and this is important because I know I'm gearing up for fall travel with my clients and also thinking about my own travel. And apparently, the airlines, and you probably saw this headline, it came out like 4 days ago. The airlines have cut 34,000 US flights, so that's flights within the US or to the US, that were planned for November. That's a loss of 3.4 million seats for sale. And a lot of those cuts are due to staffing both for pilots because they have, if you know from the pandemic, they had a lot of pilots who decided to retire. And then, some pilots decided just to leave and do some other things, but they're having a problem with pilots because it's not like you just go out and like there's pilots coming up every day. Like there's an experience level that's needed. And so that's an issue. The other issue is staffing of other personnel, right? So flight attendants, traffic control, that's actually become an issue. But traffic control, baggage handling, you have to think all these jobs that are necessary for you to fly, for the airlines to operate efficiently. I know you probably saw the story, the whole cluster with the baggage and whatnot. And so airlines are having an issue with staffing. And we're seeing that as travelers because of the cancellations and all the delays. And so the airlines have cut, like I said, 34,000 flights. The bulk of those came from American. American Airlines cut 28,807 flights. And a lot of what they cut, I spill my coffee. A lot of what they cut were flights to and from these smaller towns or smaller markets. And what I will say, so I used to be an asset manager for a corporation, and that meant we managed hotels at military bases. And so that meant traveling to destinations that are in what I like to call bodunk. Okay, no offense to anyone. And so American Airlines, they actually, if you look at it, American Airlines covers a lot of the interior of the United States. And so places like Lawton, Oklahoma, and then like some little town I flew into up in Wisconsin, like American Airlines goes to these places. Well, they cut a lot of those. So now people that live in those places, you're going to have to travel to the bigger airport, right? So if you're in Lawton, you're going to have to travel to OKC. If you're in, I can't think of another like small town right now. Well, I think Syracuse is big enough that they still have theirs. And I didn't jot down like some of the markets that they're closing, but you may want to check out that article if you're in one of these smaller markets and want to see if your schedule has been cut for November. Let's see, 20 airlines have reduced their November plans for the U.S. Delta cut 4,396 flights. And I'm looking, the American Airlines cut 11 routes. It says temporarily or permanently removed. And another one for St. Louis to Cancun won't start in November. It'll resume in December 17th. So if you're in St. Louis and you were thinking about coming to Mexico, if you're flying American, you may want to check because they won't start that back until December. So good to know. And what I will say, even if you book right now, because I have clients who they're booked right now. We have a group that's booked to Hawaii in November. They've had 3 flight changes. Okay. The first one, it was just a time change. The second, they were completely rerouted to a different connection. And then the third was just the flight number changed. Right. So just expect if you book your flight now and you're not traveling for a while, just expect that your flight will probably change. There will be some type of change just because airlines are really going through and reorganizing and looking at efficiencies in their schedules and in their staffing so that they can meet the demand. Because the demand, if you look at what happened from 2020 with the pandemic and like everyone was shut down, to now, the numbers of travelers are getting close to what they were pre-pandemic, but the staff is not where it was pre-pandemic. And so that's where we're having the issue. So I'm going to keep watching to see what happens with that. Just because again, it impacts me, it impacts my clients, and so it's something that I want to stay abreast of, and you should too. You should too. And I'll say this: if you're looking for a new career, check out the travel industry. I saw where Allegiant Airlines, they're a regional budget airline. I know they have a route typically in the summer from Nashville to Savannah, Georgia, which I was able to fly my nieces and nephew into Nashville with Allegiant Airlines, from Savannah. So that was awesome. And they do like Savannah to Washington, D.C. So Allegiant's actually a pretty cool little airline. And if you're looking to get started in the travel industry, they're actually hiring right now for, I believe, flight attendants. So you might want to check that out. I'm just saying, start your career in the travel industry. I just met a woman this weekend, works for Delta Airlines, and she gets flight benefits. And she's been able to, she actually came to Mexico for her first international trip. And she's thinking about going, I think, to Spain next. So check it out, people. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And the other headline that got my attention was from U.S. News. Now, I'll post these in the description. If you're watching this, if you're watching this on YouTube or Facebook, I'll update the description with the links to the articles. And if you're checking this out on the podcast, it should already be in the description. But this is from usnews.com. It says flight canceled or delayed. Know your rights know your rights. And I like this article because it laid out really well some things that I agree with regarding what to do if your flight is canceled or delayed. Sometimes what I find with clients, sometimes they don't call me and say, hey, this is what happened. And they'll just go with whatever the gate agent tells them, not knowing that they have certain rights. Okay. And a lot of times you'll see if something happens, like I know in Atlanta, there's a dedicated customer service desk for like Delta and some other places. And so get in line, okay, get in line and or get on the phone with the airline or your travel advisor so that you can know what your options are, okay? Know how long it's going to be delayed or if they're canceling it completely. You can ask for a refund if the airline cancels your flight or is significantly delayed, all right? And there's some wiggle room around significantly delayed. And this is mandated by the Department of Transportation, all right? But they require the airline to provide a full refund. What happens is the airline will say to you, oh, we'll give you a voucher. Be careful what you accept because those vouchers come with restrictions or expiration dates. And so know your options when it comes to that. And check any limitations and blackouts if you do choose to get a voucher. The other thing to think about is if you book through a third party, like if it's booked through like a FunJet or something like that, then they will work with the airlines to get, to work on your behalf. So you might get like a travel credit or something like that. So honestly, whenever possible, it's best to book directly with the airline. And I'm telling you that as a travel advisor because it gives you the most flexibility when it comes to making changes and getting any kind of not reciprocity, what's it called, refunds or whatnot from the airline. So know that. And you want to review each, like whatever airline you're flying, review their cancellation policy because they can vary by airlines, okay? And their cancellation policy will tell you like if a flight is canceled due to mechanical error, this, that. So know the cancellation policies for the airline that you're flying. I also like this article because it goes on to talk about how to avoid cancellations and delays. And I like this because these things are what guide some of what I do for my clients, right? So when I'm thinking about the flights, I like to get them out early morning. So if possible, I'll try not to make it too early because those like 5:30 flights can be annoying. But if you leave out early, there's less chance actually of cancellation. Historically, there have been fewer cancellations in the morning than later on in the day. Um, Another way to avoid is to consider an alternate airport, meaning if you are flying out of a smaller town like Lawton, Oklahoma, then maybe look at leaving out of OKC instead because there's going to be more options, right? Or, for example, if you're flying out, if you're in, Savannah, for example, right? Maybe look at flights out of Atlanta or Jacksonville because there might be more options. And that way, if your flight is canceled, there's some other options, especially coming out of Atlanta. Atlanta, like, oh my goodness. Even flying out of like Orlando, which that's a bit of a drive from Savannah, but you'll get more options when it comes to the flights available to you in case something happens. The other thing is team carry on. If at all possible, fly without checking a bag. What this does, it allows you maximum flexibility. So that way, if they're like, well, hey, we can't get you there, but we can route you to wherever, then you don't have to worry about your bags have gone on without you. You don't have to worry about, following your bags because you already have them with you. And so it allows you maximum flexibility. I'll tell you that at one point, a family member had flight benefits. So my boys and I were like, oh, we're going to go to Fort Walton Beach, Florida. And we're there at the airport, and we didn't get on the flight, but I had checked our bags. So our bags were on their way to Fort Walton Beach, and we weren't. So we ended up renting a car and driving down to Fort Walton Beach, going to the airport to get our bags, and of course continuing on our trip. So it was hilarious, and it worked out in that case. But if at all possible, don't check a bag. It gives you the maximum flexibility. The other thing is, let's see, avoid weekend and holiday travel. Travel off peak. And with my clients, if they're flexible, I normally look at Tuesday and Wednesday departures because sometimes there's a savings, right? And then other times, like, it's just less, it's fewer people, and there's typically less chance of cancellations because of traffic delays and all that. So typically, there's no guarantees, but if you can leave on a Tuesday or Wednesday, there's some benefits to that. The other thing is to opt for longer layovers and consider what's called a stopover. So this is really good for, I like it for international destinations, right? Like you've probably heard of before the pandemic, Wow Airlines. Well, they were really popular because they had stopovers in Iceland. So if you were going to Amsterdam, you'd have like a stopover in Iceland that was long enough for you to like get a hotel and enjoy Iceland for a day or two, right? Depending on the length of the stopover. I actually, on purpose, my first trip to Mexico, for my return, I booked a flight with a 5-hour layover in Mexico City. We left our bags in a secure location, and we hopped in a taxi and explored Mexico City, had lunch in Mexico City, and then made our way back. I don't recommend that for everyone unless you're a seasoned traveler, but it was fun. So stopovers can be a great way to give yourself, again, some flexibility in the event of delays and cancellations. Let's see. The other thing is to purchase travel insurance for flights. I highly recommend travel insurance. I've talked about that before because it gives you some measure of assurance that if something happens, you will be made whole, right? I had a couple who lost a night at a resort because they got stuck in Dallas Fort Worth Airport. Their initial delay was because of, I think, traffic control. And so the airlines tried to put them on the next flight, but everything was sold out. So they ended up, like I said, losing the night. They flew out that following morning. Um, Thankfully, they have travel insurance, so they're able to just get documentation and submit it to the insurance company, to get some of their money back, right? And I will say that coming back from Barbados, I missed a connection due to a delay, and I didn't like stress about it because I just called, talked about it with the travel insurance representative, and they were like, "We keep your receipts and submit this and blah blah blah." And so my hotel stay and my meals were covered by the travel insurance. They reimbursed me for that. So travel insurance just helps give you a bit of peace of mind knowing that you'll be made whole in the event that something happens. It doesn't change the cancellation or the delay. Like you still have to work through that. But again, it's just kind of a measure of peace of mind. But those are the articles that I found interesting. I'm seeing here if there's something I missed on here. See, avoid checking the bag, sign up for flight notifications. Yes. Let's see, avoid weekend travel, fly in the morning, consider, yeah, so I hit all the points. Well, that's everything I wanted to cover this week on Travel Talk Weekly. I am excited that people are traveling, but like I said, it's crazy out there. So make sure that you educate yourself and make sure that um, you have your ducks in a row when it comes to booking your travel, choosing the right partners to travel with. There are some airlines that I like better than others because of how they take care of their clients or their travelers rather. And I will tell you, I'm not a big fan of airlines like Spirit and Frontier because with them they don't have partnerships with other airlines, and so if you do get canceled by them, usually you're stuck, right? Whereas if you're canceled by like a Delta or an American, they have alliances with other airlines and will often work to help you find an alternative, even if it's not on one of their planes. So just consider that as you travel as well. So I don't see any questions coming through, so I'm going to go ahead and end it this Saturday. Thank you for tuning in to Travel Talk Weekly. We'll be here next Saturday to talk more about travel with you. In the meantime, feel free to visit www, do I really have to say that, lawaltravel.com, and so for our newsletter, Curated Connection, and stay in touch with us. You can also find us on Spotify if you'd like to listen to the audio. And of course, we're on Facebook and YouTube. Looking forward to seeing you out there in the world, people, and live well and travel often. Bye.